All right, y'all. Here we are. The Black Factor. Back again. Back in the building. Back on the block. Ready to get it in. I'm going to just tell y'all now. Share this show. Like this show. Tell your friends. And let them tell two friends. And so on and so on. You're not going to want to miss this show. Because the content in this particular show tonight is going to be deep. Especially if you are a homeowner or are interested in selling or purchasing a home. Man, we got something to talk about tonight, y'all. So, welcome to the Black Factor. Like I said, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit those notification buttons, especially on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's very important. And don't forget to support black media. Welcome, Oh So Smooth family, my simulcast radio folks over there with DJ Shorty Smooth. I appreciate y'all checking in. And for ladies and gentlemen, for you, those of you who want to be riding along and you just want to listen along as you go, you can always join the Oh So Smooth radio family simply by downloading the app. It's a good thing to have, you know. Get it and hold on to it, you know what I'm saying. Also, and you can get that app at Play Store and Apple iTunes. All right, so this is the Black Factor, where the truth has no use for your opinion and facts override your feelings, like it or not, y'all. And tonight, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest. And I think you're going to enjoy what you see tonight. So y'all get ready for that. Anyway, right, before we get it cracking, y'all, I want to first say that the Kyle Rittenhouse case and the Ahmaud Arbery murder trial have been very interesting these last few days. And one of those guys actually went out here and took the stand in his own behalf. That is amazing. And he is so far digging himself a hole that I do not think that he's going to get out of. But who am I? Anyway, so let's just dig right in. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you my special guest, my co-host for the evening. I don't even know what to call her. She don't like to use her government name, you know what I'm saying? So we're not going to use her government name. We just going to call her that other woman. Welcome, other woman.
Greetings, everyone.
All right, so I see Stephanie Collier in the building and Regina Freeman. Thank you for checking in. For whatever reason, I see that the Facebook feed is not coming up. Well, I don't care. I'm not worried about it. So let's move on. So tonight's show, Tatum.
Yes.
Techno Feudalism. Now this is something I got from you. So
yes.
we're gonna let you. I'm waiting on this education I'm gonna get tonight because I know it's gonna be good. But I know it's something we've discussed before, and it is incredibly important, especially as it pertains to our economy. So I say we dig right in.
Yes.
The main players, well, what appear to be main players, and this is what prompted this discussion. Zillow. Now, for those of you who know anything about real estate or going into real estate or buying or any of that kind of stuff, Zillow is a large, I've always known it to be a way to kind of look at houses and get an idea of what a house might cost on the market in certain places. I kind of thought that was a cool thing. But it turns out that Zillow has been up to some other shenanigans. They have been effectively making the market crazy. Now, I guess it's been in the last couple of years. Well, first, let me start by telling a little bit of a story. When I first moved to Texas, I had no intentions of purchasing property in this state because I had no intentions of staying. I came here to work the oil fields, which I did effectively, and we did a pretty good job out here. Well, when things started to slow down, I kind of made my mind up. I said, well, we ought to go on and get out of here. Let's just roll. Let's move on. Let's either go back to Atlanta or some other place we've lived in the past, you know, that kind of thing. And my wife said, "Yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's give San Antonio a shot." So I said, yeah, okay, because the weather here is great. Well, we started kind of looking at properties, but then not really. But then things started to go haywire, and we realized that it became a buyer's market. I mean, a seller's market. The prices started going crazy, and I thought that it was because of the sort of urban sprawl that was taking place here in San Antonio, that a lot of people were moving here, and yes, that is true. However, the housing market prices started going kind of nuts, and so everybody was kind of like, well, this is what they're gonna cost. This is what they are. You know, if you want a house, this is what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to pay these prices, and I refused. You know, and we're not far off of the housing market bust that we went through. What was that? In 2008, yeah, it was like 2005 or 6 it started, I think, and everything kind of went nuts. And I said, I'm not going through that. I'm not going to have more house. I'm sorry, owe more money for a house that's not worth the money. So I backed off. And the real estate lady who we were dealing with kept saying, "Oh, you're not going to get around this. Oh, the prices are going to be what they're going to be. You're going to have to pay this price, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, I'm sorry, but I disagree. Because one thing about the housing market, and it has done this traditionally, historically, it goes up and it comes down like anything else. So I said, well, I'm going to wait because the prices are going to come down. Well, the prices steady were going up. But see, here's my theory. How can the prices continue to rise and just go up and up and up, and people's incomes don't go up and up and up? It's not sustainable. Well, and for the life of me, and I kept thinking to myself, how is it that this can continue to go the way that it's going, and people pay for this? People are still working. It's people out here working 2 and 3 jobs. You got people working for Amazon making $10, $15 an hour. You know, jobs are not like they used to be. So, with all of that said, I was having this discussion with my co-host, and she brought to my attention that Zillow and what's the name of the other company? BlackRock have been doing things that are deeply affecting the housing market, which blew me away. I was not aware. So, Tatum,
Yes.
give us some insight about what they were doing and how it affects everything.
Yes. So Zillow had what is called an iBuyer program, which they were in the news recently because they got rid of the program. But to make the long and the short of it, they were purchasing property from people for way over the market value. So say you had your house listed for $250, they come and offer you like $400,000. And
the funny thing, that you say that, because I can remember the real estate people saying, well, people are offering these properties at this price, but people are paying over that price. And I'm thinking to myself, well, who does that? Where do people go and they decide they want to pay more money for a piece of property than these people are asking for, or than it's what it's appraised at? Because you still got to remember, you got to pay taxes on this now. But go ahead.
Right. So that's one thing. And then BlackRock, they are, I guess, a financial, I don't know if they're an investment firm. I don't, because I'm not really into finance stuff. But what we just need to know here is that they have been buying up rental property or buying up family homes across the United States. And so ultimately they have been renting them out. So now people are renting from corporations. And so I don't know. I mean, maybe haven't been alive long enough. I don't know. But I'm like, I think this might be like a new, well, okay, it's not a new thing, which gets us into like what a techno feudalism, what that looks like going forward. But in the sense that like in recent history in the U.S., like, okay, this is kind of a new thing. Like, oh, now if you lived in an apartment, of course, yeah, you expect to rent from a corporation often, right? I would say, especially now.
So you're saying like the apartment complexes and things that are owned by larger entities.
Yeah.
Okay.
But single family home seems to be, I'm not going to say it's new, but it seems to be ramping up. Like they seem to be acquiring property faster. like with the idea that it will be like a good investment for the future. So of course now we're not in these closed door
So the
meetings.
large corporation is basically buying up single family dwellings the same as if they owned an apartment complex.
Yes. And so
And paying over market value for it.
now I don't know if BlackRock is, I can't say for sure, but Zillow was paying over. And I'm pretty sure BlackRock is probably too, because, or let's say they're not offering, but what they are doing, they're like, hey, we got cash. And who's going to turn it down? You know, especially now they're like, hey, you know, it's not the same as buying it from another family. You know, the things go through really fast and quickly, and boom, it's like a very easy process for the seller.
So they don't have to go through or jump through all the hoops of closing and all that. Look, here's your money.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's a closing and all of that, but they do it in a way that makes it just easy for people that are selling.
Yep, it's easy breezy. So it's like, who's not gonna sell their house? You know, like
So
hey.
so in other words, so basically what they're doing and what we found out that they have been doing is by purchasing up all of these different properties, they are effectively kind of like wiping the board clean. They take all these properties in certain areas, and then they sit on them, and they'll buy them. Let's say the house is worth $200,000, and they sell it for $200,000. And the person that's selling the house, and they'll say, you know, you got 2 or 3 people, you know, especially in an area like San Antonio, for example, people are always looking for homes. There's a lot of people moving here. This place is blowing up.
Texas in general is having
Texas in general,
huge boom.
Yeah, and so they would come here, and then a person would be selling their home, and they'll be like, well, we'll give you $300,000. And people start, well, wait, we'll give you $310,000. And next thing you know, the house is inflated to $400,000, and the major corporation pays for it, and then they turn around and put it back on the market for $425,000. And they buy up large swaths of these properties and then turn around and increase the value over the long term in these areas for these properties, which is ridiculous.
And that's one more thing that you just kind of touched on here. It's also like driving up the pricing of houses in places like Texas, which a lot of parts of Texas are still inexpensive, but you know, if you're coming from California or New York, coming to the South, any part of the South, Texas, wherever, you know, once you sell your house up there, you know, hey, you're free and clear. And this has been going on for a few years, of course. We live in Texas, so like we have already seen this happening, but I feel like 2020.
As a matter of fact, one of our realtors, one of the people who helped us when we first moved here, he and his wife are from California, and they actually sold their home in California, moved here, and bought 3 houses and still had money left over.
A brilliant plan, frankly.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they've been in real estate ever since. They never looked back.
Can't blame them for
They quit their jobs, moved here, sold their house, turned around and bought 3 houses, lived in one, rented out the other 2, still had money left over, and started a real estate business. They ain't never looked back.
Yeah, it's
still
it's
doing it
a
to
smart
this day.
move. Like, and they did that a few years ago. You know,
Right.
like probably like over almost 10 years ago now.
It was longer than that because we were here 10 years, so they had already been at it for a while.
Right. So those are people that like saw the writing on the wall. They didn't wait for the public health crisis to happen before, you know, like, hey, we want to get out of here, because California and New York both lost population, and everyone is moving to the southeast.
California, New York, Chicago. In fact, I think all the major metropolises have lost population.
Yes.
So
if they are in the, how should we say, like, you know, not the South. No, southern cities are like the ones booming right now.
So really, like, so all of this kind of plays into, I think, what our new normal is starting to look like. Particularly when we go back to talking about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and NFTs and things like that. I think things are changing so dramatically that people are not really ready for what's happening. Even with this housing market, I mean, and you start talking about, you know, the ways money is being made and the way it's being handled and transferred. I think there's levels of there's freedoms that are coming with it. But I always believe, you know, you get something, you got to give something up.
Right, which takes us into like kind of the techno feudalism conversation, because it's like, as things start to go digital, you know, that's great and it's convenient at first, but on down the line, this could potentially be where we have painted ourselves into a corner, you know. You
know, that makes me, I just thought about this. I saw a story. I think it was either yesterday or the day before, where this lady was talking about how they had been running mock tests to prepare for this last little human experiment that we've gone through over the last couple of years. And now they're saying that there is a new sort of test that has taken place that has to do with our energy. And I said that to say, while we're in this technical age, I think we have to be very cautious about how much, and I think it's too late personally. I mean, we're so far down the road, but we put a lot of,
for me. That's for sure. It's too.
But we put a lot of faith in our power grid. Just as an example, I really don't think people understand that if something catastrophic happens and we no longer have power,
a solar storm is
a solar
recent
storm,
example
a
of
solar
something.
flare, EPMD. You know, see, a lot of people don't even know what that is, and
Or
that's
just some
electromagnetic pulse. You know, you're talking about things like, and like I can mention something that they call, it's called a Faraday box. A lot of people don't know what a Faraday box is, and I'll tell you right quick. A Faraday box is designed to protect your electronics. It is a device that you would put, say, for example, a cell phone or some other type of electronic in, so that when an electromagnetic pulse or a solar flare or whatever happens that will kill our power or kill electronics in general, it will protect it from it. It's basically a box that's lined in lead and that kind of thing, so that the energy doesn't zap your electronics, even your cars, for example. And I think we have come so far with electricity in our power systems that when we start talking about the digital age, can y'all imagine what would happen if the planet went black tomorrow? I know I'm probably going there, but I'm just saying, it's just a thought in my head.
That would be, we haven't, so just automatically everyone in the hospital, well, hospitals usually have generators, so that's the problem. Okay, nowhere to call, like, emergency services. Refrigerator doesn't work. So, you know, all that food you stored, even if you had stocked up the freezer, like, okay, that's all gone, you know?
I mean, shoot, and look, I mean, think about it. And even when you start talking about fuel for those generators, that fuel got to come out the ground. It got to come from somewhere.
Right,
it's got to be
come out
pumped.
the gas pump. So if you don't have wood or wood burning, you know, you don't have wood source, which a lot of people don't, you know, shout out to Wisconsin because, you know, they're always prepared for everything.
Right.
I love that state. Really great. Yeah, that's just some of the stuff. If you have an electric car, you're certainly not getting anywhere. But if you have a gas car, you're not getting anywhere either because you can't go to the gas station. So. But
guess who won't be affected? People like the Amish.
No, they'll be fine.
They'll be
the military Rambo types.
All of a sudden, they'll become the geniuses of the world. Not to say they're not smart. I'm just saying they'll become the most important people immediately.
But they don't even live in most states. So if you don't even have Amish around you,
right?
You know. I mean, you know, they're not in every state either. So if you're outside the Midwest or like Eastern Seaboard, you don't even have the Amish to come help you, if they even want to be bothered, frankly. But they are like very nice, so I think they would help. Just my personal opinion, but.
Well, they're supposed to be very God-fearing people, so of course they would do, you know, God's will. But yeah, you know.
Or maybe like, y'all deserve this. We're gonna let you.
Right. We told you it was coming. You should have known. With all of your computers and stuff. No.
Right. They'll have the last laugh for sure.
But so basically, with Techno Feudalism, I think that there's a chart that we had talked about.
Yes.
That deals with feudalism, y'all. And if you don't know what that means,
yes,
I'm gonna put this chart up right quick, just so you get an idea. It's called Feudalism Then and Now, and it shows you the pyramid of power, basically. In medieval times, the people at the top were the monarchs, and now
your kings and queens.
Yeah, your kings and queens and people like that. And now you have your central bankers, the Federal Reserve, and you know those types. Now those are the people at the top of the pyramid. Then you turn around and you have the landed gentry, which are the dukes, the earls, the people who have lands. You know, you ever watch any of those movies and the king says, "I'll let you have this land over here." You know, you do this and then you get these lands, or people inherit these lands. But then you have your big bankers, which are beneath your central bankers. Then you have the clergy, who, of course, dictated how a lot of things went politically over during the medieval times. But now you have elected officials, and I think I would probably actually put the clergy somewhere in our new feudalism.
Oh, they're
somewhere.
definitely still power players.
Definitely,
I don't know
yeah.
why this list didn't
include them. Yeah,
because if you go to the Vatican, I mean, I just like to emphasize, like, well, here we have, like, the mega churches, right, which definitely have their own economies, if you will. Like, they're their own entity.
Involved.
But then the Vatican itself, and that's just one, that's just the Christians, right, and that's just one sect of Christians, but, like, they have their own city,
Right, Vatican City is considered
it's decorated
its own
in marble,
entity.
like it's its home. They're like probably the OG ballers. Frankly, like they have more money than the monarchs. Like,
ain't that something? Okay, so then you have your, well, it says royal ministers, which that would be your storefront church guys, I guess. Or that would be your mega churches.
Well,
put the
like the mega preachers, pastors, I would say. So not quite the clergy, more like maybe the celebrity.
And then in there with the elected officials. Now, I'll tell you something funny. I saw a post somewhere the other day where, what's that new thing that these right-wingers are doing, talking about Let's Go Brandon? If you don't know what the Let's Go Brandon thing is, it's a silly, like a chant that the conservatives are doing now, where supposedly somebody thought that Joe Biden, or somebody said F Joe Biden, and somebody else thought, go ahead.
At a NASCAR, so this is what.
Yeah, explain
So
the story.
at a NASCAR race, this guy like won for the first time, and for some reason I think the crowd was chanting like F Joe Biden, and so the reporter, like in a quick save, just was like, "Oh, they're saying let's go Brandon," and that was the name of the NASCAR driver that won, but they weren't but of course on the new, you're broadcasting, you can't have people like cursing in the background. FCC fine automatically, period.
Right.
So she's like, they're saying let's go Brandon. So now, of course, the internet being what it is, like everyone, just kind of went viral, and everyone's just been. So if you want to say, if you would like to say that euphemism for that you don't agree with the president, then that's how you say it. Let's go Brandon.
Ain't that something? So basically, then, what ended up happening is that the people, John Hagee, isn't his church is here, right? In San Antonio.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, well, his whole congregation was screaming, "Let's go Brandon." Now, this is supposed to be a church. This is supposed to be a place where these political things are out. Now, if they want to start getting political, they need to start paying taxes on that money.
We could always argue the church has always been like political. I don't know who.
Oh, yeah, I don't disagree.
It's since the beginning of their history, like it's always been like one of the Catholics' first moves when they came to power was like to cement themselves in politics. And that has not changed ever since.
Well, but now see, that goes back to where we were with the whole feudalism thing, right?
Right.
Okay, so let me see. So if we're going to do that, then we have to consider that. Okay, so we had the clergy and then the royal ministers. So the Catholic Church would be the clergy. Then you have the royal ministers, which would be your mega churches now. But then on this level, they have it where the elected officials are next in line. But we also know that the elected officials are definitely affected by the mega churches.
Right,
so I would put them on top
them,
of them.
They definitely work for them. That's where it's like the separation of church and state is always kind of like a laughable sometimes, because like it's definitely this like huge gray area. But yeah, like we know a lot of the politicians will pander specifically to different political agendas, which are often like based on some. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Put it on there for me.
But they will pander to like say the
link.
evangelist or whoever.
Go, now speak up. Don't do that. See, you always whispering from the corner. See, our producer, she always got a. What were you saying?
So, since you guys were talking about the churches, and you've been to the Vatican, and y'all were talking about the baller churches, and Vatican is like really balling.
The balling. It's the balliness of the balling when it comes to
There's a
churches.
description of the church, because everyone in America knows what a mega church looks like.
Oh yeah, no, the Vatican puts the mega churches to shame. Like they look like pauper houses. Like
Well,
it looks like the projects.
You've been to the Vatican. Give us some
That's what
idea.
I'm saying. Like the nicest mega churches in America make it look like the projects. Like the Vatican makes that look like the projects. Like it's the favela. Like it's raggedy. It's dusty. It's poor. You know, like when you go in the Vatican, it's marble. You know, and there are no words for how big the inside of that place is. And we didn't get to see everything, but like, because we didn't even have time. I had blisters. I was like, we have to go sit down. We walked. I'm pretty sure we walked like 3 or 4 miles, like through a building which
Really?
like, yes, like I'm certain it was several miles we walked.
Wow.
And it's all marble, gold, marble everywhere, floor to ceiling. Like there's just there's really no words. Like you have to go see it. Like it's just they've got all the like sculptures, you know, all these artifacts they have got. And, you know, this is stuff on display because I know they got the real goods hidden away somewhere. Also, a fun fact, because I know you want to talk about this. We'll probably talk about it in the future. But the Vatican is built over an old pagan temple, which they looted to build on top of.
Wow.
Which, you know, colonization and whatnot.
Huh. Ain't that something? Learn something new every day.
A goddess pagan temple at that, so not just any temple.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we're going to definitely have to do that.
Yeah, we won't go down the
We'll
rabbit hole
have
today.
to get into that one. Okay, so in the feudalism pyramid, so then you have your merchants and your top bureaucrats, which after you got your elected officials, which would be your presidents and country leaders and that kind of thing. Then you got your merchants, top bureaucrats, vassals, and top professionals. That would be your yuppies, you know, your people that's upwardly mobile.
Right.
Then you got
Software
everyone
engineers.
else, which make up 98.5% of the rest of the population.
So yes, the unskilled, unwashed masses, people who don't own anything. I hate to say unwashed. Let me not say that. But, you know, like, it's just a euphemism, you know, but yeah, like, you know.
Regina Freeman asked, is Vatican City sovereign territory?
I believe so. Like, they are their own.
Yes, they're their own entity. They actually have their own police department, their own military, the whole nine.
Wild when you think about it.
So basically, and then you see right here where it has "you are here" at the very bottom. So it lets you know you're everyone else, and
a serf.
right. So, but here's the thing: from medieval times to now, nothing has changed.
Well, we could start with America. So I was kind of thinking about this. So there was this quote from George Washington, who, you know, if you guys, we all know American history, so we won't even go down that rabbit hole. But apparently he was a huge proponent of property rights. Mm-hmm. So there's this quote where he says, freedom and property rights are inseparable. You can't have one without the other. Now, of course, you think of like George Washington and his parents. They would have grown up in England. You know, a lot of like colonists, they would have grown up over in Europe, still a part of that like feudal system, that medieval feudal system, because that's what it really was up until the U.S. So those people came here, you know, to become lords of their own. And at first, you know, the U.S., the colonies, they did have a quote-unquote feudal system, if you will, right? Like, you know, they had the governors, which were like the lords, and everybody had to like work the land and pay taxes to the king, and that's what the Americans, the colonists, were like, no, we're not going to do that. And, you know, that was the start of, I don't want to say not necessarily capitalism, but, you know, just breaking away from that classic feudal system. Mm-hmm. So, you know, America in its inception was not supposed to like be a feudal state.
But here's the funny thing is that was the whole purpose for breaking away from the kingdom, so to speak. And then all of a sudden they had to end up having to model America under the same on the same premises.
Right, because, you know, those people who were peasants, you know, because the people that come over here, well, some of them, a lot of peasants from Europe came here, or people who weren't quite
peasants.
I mean, that's what they were, the unwashed masses from Europe, and they were like, hey, we can, you know, it was a way to level up. They're like, if you want to come clear some trees, you know, shoot some Indians, and buy some slaves, you too can be a lord, you know. And they were like, huh. Well, we have nothing over here. I mean, you know, America's a hustle country. Like, this was our foundation, right? We're like, well, if you're willing to clear the land, and do what it takes, put in the work, fine. Like, you become your own lord, right? And they were giving the land away because they wanted the Indians gone, and they needed somebody to knock down all the trees, because, mind you, there were trees from coast to coast here. Like, the forest went from coast to coast. It's a long way. It's a lot of trees to clear. So, and so the slaves effectively became, like, the serf class then. And, just, like, the kind of, what do they call them? Yeoman farmer folks, like the really poor whites who still were not able to come here and quite get it together, which they're still around. It just took one drive through North Georgia, or it's just. I mean, that's not to crap on them, but I mean, it's true. Like, it's and this is also where, like, voting here was a huge issue, because they're like, oh, you don't own no land, you can't vote, and as America was like, okay, we're gonna do away with that, because that was some feudal system stuff.
That would keep everybody from voting.
Yeah, there will be, and so they're all right. We're gonna try to, like, work the laws a little bit, try to massage the situation, because we don't kind of want to be exactly like England or the medieval Europe.
It would make them hypocrites.
Exactly, like they fought
kind of like they are now.
Yeah, because now we are back in a feudal system, if you will. Like, now they're expecting. Like, would BlackRock be buying up all those single-family homes if they didn't think that, like, renting is about to be on the rise? Like, now, even worse.
That part right there. Rentals are about to be on the rise again. It's getting ready to be at the rate things are going. Well, I mean, wait a minute.
The crash already, I would say, was the start of that. Like, so many people, which I was, like, a child, so I don't know. But, like, a lot of, from what I understand historically, a lot of people lost their houses. And the financial people, they knew what they were doing when they did that. Like, there was no, these people are supposed to be smarter than us. Like, they want us to believe that it's some type of incompetence or a mistake, but it's definitely not that. Like, they're just highly manipulative, and they know people have short memory.
My God. Incredibly
which
short.
We've seen, especially over the last year and a half, and so I'm like, anyone still believing, like, or following along with certain narratives, like, you got to get with the program, because, like, they lie literally every other day or change the story, and it's like, you could forgive that at first, but it's like, again, y'all supposed to be smarter than us, so-called higher IQs, and yet you're doing things that no one.
But isn't it amazing that we as a society continue to lift people that are idiots into positions of power that control our
But that's what I'm saying. They're not idiots. Like, they play like, we didn't mean to do that, but, like, they definitely meant to do that. I don't think they're idiots at all. Like, that's what we have to tell ourselves as the peasant class to, like,
to make ourselves feel better about what's happening. Okay.
Which, we've got this debate about if 45 was an idiot, and I've always said he's not. And everyone will argue with me that he is, and I'm like,
he clearly he is not a complete idiot. He knows enough about people to manipulate, and he has truly manipulated
most people,
society in ways like Play-Doh. I've not seen anybody capable of doing what he's done on such a large scale in history. Let me not say in history. We can say
Mark Zuckerberg is another one of those people.
Yeah, but but I mean, look at it this way: he uses Facebook as a tool to do that, and I think that he only I'm not gonna say in recent years, but I think he realized the amount of control and power that he had over a period of time, and now has only begun to kind of use it as sort of a social engineering experiment. More than anything. That's what I think.
Well, this, again, techno feudalism, like the tech bros, they've got all our data. They really, they have the choice to work in tandem with the government, or they don't have to, and really they kind of have a their data and everyone's attention is their resource, so they don't mind diamonds or coal or anything like that, but yet everyone is I hate to say, like, in the metaverse. Like, we're all here we are right now streaming something online on one of their platforms. Like, the world doesn't
good point.
So it's like, you could, and as we saw, like, I think 45 was great at that. Like, what made him powerful, shall we say, his ability to use the internet. Like, Twitter and stuff wasn't popular when Obama was, like, well, okay, I remember people praising him because they were like, oh, he's the first person to, like, get into the youth. Like, he's online, he's on social media tweeting. And then, like, Trump took it to a whole other level, which is super funny because he's, like, in his 70s. I always think it's hilarious. And you have these, like, the most ignorant tweets, which would always make me laugh. Like, so bad, I know. He had Twitter, like, turned up, because Twitter was almost dead, like, as an app. he would be on there causing, like, all kind of commotion.
And then after he got him back in the game, they quit him.
Yeah, they put it, but, you know, the joke's on Twitter because, you know, I think folks will be back off there again. They don't log onto their forgotten account to cuss Trump out every day, so, you know, they'll be, you know, people just continue scrolling and leaving.
Well, now, Stephanie Collier on here says, think about how many homes didn't have access to tech when pandemic sent kids to the house.
Yeah. And
that is true.
And those people, like, what I call, like, left behind, and I don't mean that in, like, a rude way, but it's, like, the left behind class, because it's, like, y'all can't, you know, you can't even participate in society now, because you don't have access to technology. Like, you were now.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Like, it's sick.
It's insane.
There were some kids, I remember, there was a news story, and the kids were, like, not laid in the sidewalk, but kind of just sitting in the doorway of Taco Bell trying to do their work because they didn't have internet.
What were they using, the Wi-Fi?
Yep.
Wow.
They were using. Now, why their mother didn't go drop them at the library, I will never know. But
that's crazy.
The kind of parents. See, I'm not going to do that this week.
Oh, you're not going to do that this week?
No, I'm gonna be quiet.
No, don't be quiet. Say what you got to say.
You know, folks have children and they're not prepared. You know.
Well, no, that's true.
And I know it's hard. I think it's like an impossible to ever. I'm not a parent, so this is just like me objectively observing. But it's impossible to prepare for everything. But you know, there were other families who were like, I'm building desks in an office in my, you know, basement or in my spare room or in the kids' room, you know, or we bought new laptops and, you know, I've had friends that got kids. That's what they did. They went and bought all the kids' laptops and they bought them desks and little, you know, workstations. And, you know, those parents who are setting their children up or have the resources or found the resources to set their kids up for success versus the parents like, I'm going to just throw the kids outside the Taco Bell.
But would it matter? I mean, but, you know, since you, on that note, do you think would it matter? Would it have mattered either way? I mean, because, you know, I mean, think about it. Educationally, you have some children whose parents are participators. They participate in everything that goes on, you know, all the way to the PTA and so on. Then you got other parents that just kind of send their kids to school and use school damn near like a daycare or, you know, some sort of babysitter. Which we definitely saw
last year because they was screaming about, wow, where are my kids going to go for 8 hours? And it's kind of, so this goes back again to the feudalism thing where it's like these people... They weren't working from home, you know? They didn't even have, so most likely they were in lower skilled jobs probably, or like first responder jobs or something like that. So they had no place for their children.
Half of that first responder was BS in the first place. You know, a lot of that, you know, people, I'm a first responder because they didn't want to sit in the house. But I'm a firm believer that the reason a lot of people didn't want to stay home is because they got terrible homes. That's just something
I definitely saw that. Now, I was considered a first responder, so yeah,
you had to report the news.
I had to be at work. So the only people that were supposed to be out were the first responders, which actually is like the medical field, journalism.
Right. Emergency
the police,
services,
like firefighters, like where I lived at the time. Those are the only people that were supposed to be outside. Like everyone else, and I guess, you know, they did consider like the grocery store workers at that point first responders. But again, that's more so like the lower skilled people, definitely in the serf area, and those people's kids, of course, tend to already be in bad school districts. Children are already set up for failure. Now your parents don't have anywhere to send you for 8 hours. Next thing you know, CPS is at your house. You know, like it's not funny because it's like this is like the tax of poverty though. Like, and it just keeps,
you got to pay a poor tax.
It keeps
compounding. You definitely got to pay more to be broke. It costs more money to be broke than it does to have money. When you got money, it's amazing. People give you stuff.
You know,
you're
it's
broke, everybody want to take from you.
It's the flow of currency, you know. It's like all things. It's like energy begets itself. Like you,
right?
Because like poverty sucks, obviously, and I feel like that, you know, unfortunately, the public health crisis that we have witnessed is just like pushed the timeline up. So like if you were poor, like now you're super poor. Like if you were, now a lot of people took the opportunity to get new skills, and they were like, hey, I see the writing on the wall, like stuff's looking a little sketchy, and they were like, let me make some changes.
I just have to come in and defend and say something because I know.
Go to the microphone.
I can't get on.
Well, you can. Yeah, you can hear it.
I'm gonna talk loud. I'm in defense of one, a mother, of course, but two, we have a lot of women that do have careers. And see, I say you like Oprah because Oprah, you don't have any children. But there's a lot of women out here that have careers and excellent jobs, and they could not stay at home. They still had to figure out something to do with their kids.
Okay, but if they have that,
so that wouldn't be part of the serf.
Okay,
area.
That's fine. And
I mean, you can still be a serf,
if they
though,
have
with the
those
job.
resources, then there are other ways by which to.
I had two friends that were doctors, and they didn't want to during COVID. They didn't want to take their children.
Now,
to work.
I also said first responders. They would be considered first responders because
Okay,
now
you're
those
right.
people aren't necessarily like unskilled,
People
unwashed
who
men.
work in banks. And the tellers, you had to have the banks open.
What the hell you need a bank open for if you ain't
The
supposed
banks
to?
was open
No.
during COVID.
But listen to what I'm saying. If you ain't supposed to be going nowhere, why your bank need to be open?
The bank had to be open because people who are first responders still need
What you need money to
gas
get?
to get to wherever they go.
Okay.
I didn't
but
go
you
to
don't-
the bank all 2020. I don't know.
Okay.
Certainly not the height
Like
of
I
COVID.
get all of that, but here's what I'm
And
saying.
she was a COVID nut.
Let me put it like this. Imagine if when the government and the CDC and everybody said back there in 2020, the beginning of 2020, everybody sit still for 3 weeks. Don't do nothing. Don't go nowhere. If you're not a first responder, stay home.
Okay, let me say this. The tire places, body shops, they
Let me
were open. I
finish.
think those are ridiculous. They
Let me
shouldn't have been
finish.
open.
Yes, I
So
agree.
those people who had kids,
I agree. My point being, and like Riri said, truck drivers, because yes, I
that's
have
right.
my trucks were running.
and
Yes, they
speaking of
were.
truck drivers out here, what they
That-
gonna do with their kids.
listen to what I'm
go
saying,
on,
though.
go on.
All I'm saying, and I'm not saying that people, okay, if we had sat down for 3 weeks, if people had actually stuck to the program, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Well, let me say this. I don't think that was ever going to happen because they never even wanted to admit it was airborne. They were like, wash your hands.
Right.
It's like, meanwhile, people were sneezing in like hallways at work. You know, now you don't walk through the crowd. Like the
You
cloud
don't walk
of-
through a cloud of snot.
I mean, it was.
Yeah, 'cause I know a lot of people got COVID at work.
Now,
And if-
back
Yeah,
to
most.
it.
I think a lot of people did.
And
like,
to address your point, yes, there were people who needed situations that would benefit as first responders where they couldn't leave their children at home. However, right now, all of that was a crisis. What happens if we have a real crisis? These are the
we
things.
definitely burn up 2020
And here's my point, and this goes back to somebody on here earlier mentioned their prepping skills. This goes back to what I said earlier. If we run into a situation, since we're in the techno age, hell, my electric bills in here is ridiculous. Y'all see all the stuff behind us and everything. Listen, if we lost power on a major scale, it doesn't even have to be
and
global.
that's just one type of crisis. That could
Exactly.
unfold.
That's just
Like,
one type of
that's-
crisis. You know how many different types of crises there are? Imagine if we have a real crisis where your life is going to be affected like that. The fact that we take so many things for granted every single day.
And are also very dependent
Dependent.
on like systems that may not
Yep.
be reliable.
Exactly. So
Which-
the point is,
Feudalism.
we do the most. There you go. And the poorer you are, the harder it is to make it through that. I don't care who you are. And even as a doctor, who you talk about your friends, as single parents or don't have a grandmama or somebody else
Right.
as a support system,
Winter.
maybe they need to make some friends. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Well, this.
But it goes back to like she was saying, like people now repaired. Sometimes you are repaired, and still situations that
Hold on.
Okay. Also, the parents had. Well, okay.
Prime
we'll let you go
prime
first.
example. Here's an example. If our children were still at school age, me being the man that I am, the first responder, whatever you want to call me, for all of the different jobs and things titles that I've held and hold, guess who didn't have to go nowhere and could stay home and take care of our kids?
well, yeah.
You. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I prepared for that. in being able to do what I do to make sure my family had whatever it needed, and we never had to worry about how many times do we ever have to call a babysitter? How many times do we ever put our kids in daycare?
And
exactly.
you also would have been the first person
being
hunting down homeschool material.
Thank you.
And stuff. You would have been like,
sure
oh
did.
no, y'all aren't going to be up in this
Sure,
house
exactly
like
right.
failing. Like that would have never
I'm
happened.
resourceful, but everybody's not that way, so you still can't put them
Well,
in
whose
that.
problem is that though?
I mean, yeah,
But and so this is gets into where these, unfortunately, these
not
people,
prepared to go
Again,
through.
isn't that what she said
I
initially?
know, but
They're
I
not
was
prepared.
just,
and it's like if you don't care enough about your own kids. I mean, this is just one example. It's like, but if
I
you,
homeschooled before.
we
know.
know you have,
He's
but
in better
how
shape.
many mothers are going
do what you did.
first of all, could have or even would have tried to do that? We know a lot of people let their kids fail. They don't care, like especially in a certain demographic. I'm not gonna
I
say.
mean, you think about the people we know who are educators.
Young people were having panic attacks because they actually had to stay at home and watch their children. In my mind,
It's
was like,
weird because they don't like their kids.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of oops babies. Like no shade to them, but it's like kids
Mm.
they didn't plan to prepare for, and they really don't want. And now the kids is in their house eating up all the snacks and stuff. It's like, why is the government and the schoolhouse more responsible for
Eating
your
up all-
kids than you, the
Oh, yeah, 'cause
parent?
I would've
Now,
never went to
Kimberly,
Starbucks to get
Kimberly
free-
Scott says
free
everyone
food.
doesn't think like that, and Kimberly, I agree with you.
And they suffer
and
the
that's probably
consequences
why
of
the
it.
problems are where they
And
are
Kim,
because
that's why
people
I
have not
came
been
up here.
taught to think that way. And they don't think that way because society has made it acceptable and it's okay
To
for people
rely
to
on
just
the
go
government.
willy-nilly about life and have kids and just think, well, I got a kid, I can take care of it until something happens or some other problem comes up.
Yeah,
It's just
because I thought it was ridiculous that I would say Valencia was working at school. They had to keep the schools open during COVID to feed people, which I'm like, what?
Yeah.
right.
That's
You had
ridiculous.
students who
I
literally
never
had to go
got
to
in my
school
car
just to
go
eat.
drive and
They
go get
closed
food.
the schools in
But they were still
Colorado,
feeding
but
kids.
yes, they had trucks come around to the
Yeah.
neighborhood. Well, their kids could come pick up food
But
at
the staff still had to go into the school to make sure these kids was getting breakfast, lunch, and whatever snacks, which I thought
and
was
putting their
ridiculous.
lives in jeopardy to feed children who
Yes.
should be
And-
eating
and
at
that's
home.
my- also-
Staff, that's had half the staff probably.
Oh
got
yes,
sick
it's also
from-
my issue because like the teachers tend to skew older. Like they're either really young, you know, like
Yeah,
my
or
age or
older.
younger, or,
Or they
they are
stuck it out
older.
and they've been
you
there
know,
a
and,
while.
and I kept thinking because I just remember the parents complaining like the schools aren't open, my kids are suffering, and you know, and I'm just like, well, what about the teachers? What about their families and kids? Like, and nobody,
And
no
the
one
staff,
ever cared. I
the
mean,
janitors,
and
the
no one in our
secretaries.
family is a teacher, so it's not like I'm being biased, but I'm just like I just thought of my teachers that I had. I'm not that old, right? You know, we all remember our teachers, right? Like they were usually older women, you know, and they had older husbands, and you know, now you got the kids in school coughing on the teachers, and like, how was that fair? Like, how was that ever fair?
Right.
Because you can't take care of your kids.
So
which,
you want everybody else to do it.
and this is
we
where
all know, and I know this is one of the things I bitched about when I had kids, because my kids, thank God, was never sick. I don't know if it was the breastfeeding or what, but I always had a problem when y'all went to school and somebody was sick. And I'm like, why would you bring your
They come
sick
home.
ass kid to
say
school? used to
they
drive
do
me
it all the
insane.
time, and now
I
it
can't
was
even imagine with COVID.
yeah. Now the kids is in here spreading like a very serious which
And
the
kids'
virus
cooties-
doesn't bother kids, but it takes
Yeah, and kids' cooties is way stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so get back to y'all peasantry and
So, well, let's get into this right quick because, of course, the topic is like feudalism. So, like the idea, back to that George Washington thing. So, I was watching this one economist, and he's like from South Africa, and he was saying like, you know, when you don't own anything, which we kind of talked about last week, you
Right.
have no say in society, you have no stake. And in like Europe, you know, the serfs, they relied on their lords for everything, and they literally didn't own anything. They would use the lord's tools, and you know, you wait for them to feed you and all this kind of weird stuff. So it's
Right.
like, you know, everyone was like last year, you know, stimmy checks and all that, and that was great. That's fine because you know they don't mind bailing out multinational corporations and stuff like that.
Right. So the least they could do is bail out some of society.
They could, but then it's like, you know, at some point, and which not even last year, but just in general, because we know there are people that are generationally rely on welfare and government services, but it's like when you do that for too long, too often in a communities like that, you lose your freedom. And then once you lose your freedom, like there's nothing, I mean, we even see it now, you know, they are holding people's jobs hostage if
Yep.
they don't want to.
Oh, yeah.
So now the people who are set up, you know, they can still, you know, still serve class, working class, but like they can afford to not have to clock in. They're like, hey, we're going to go to our paid off land up here in the mountain and we're going to chill out. Like, till this
Okay, we got
blows
a
over.
request
Like,
to put the chart back up, so we're gonna do
Okay.
that right quick.
yes.
And we can talk about it some more too. Matter of fact, so the feudalism So basically, and see, like now, just as an example, we went down that rabbit hole right there, talking about one small sector of society being a part of the feudal class that makes it where it's difficult for people to raise their children and still have to work under conditions that are adverse as compared to what we take for granted every single day. So again, 98.5% is everyone else. It's like you, and like the sign, like the thing say on the bottom, you are here.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not one of these other, and if you look at the rest of these points up this chart, you'll notice that none of them make up 100%. None of them. And these are the 1%ers, or the three, between 1 and 3%ers that control everybody else's life.
And frankly, it's like if you can be resourceful, it's not hard to, I think, to try to ease yourself out of the. I don't know. I'm about to put my theory to the test, though, so I'll report back next year with everyone. Try to ease out of, the absolute lower tier of society.
Yeah. So I mean, so the bottom line is the way we think and view the world, the way we think about and view the world, is probably one of our biggest hindrances in becoming more successful. We get trained through these same school systems on how to act and how to function in society in order to serve those that are in the hierarchy of the feudalistic chart. I just thought of that. Okay, so anyway. Coco Lumpsy, yes, you can Google that chart so you can see it better. Yes, ma'am. You can. It is feudalism then and now. It will pop up. Now the only thing here's the point of contention. A weird little place. My co-host and I, when we talked about last night, as we were looking at this chart, we came to the conclusion that in Techno Feudalism there are no tech people on this chart, which makes this chart sort of a farce. But then, not really, because here's why. The tech people that are not on the chart, I'm going to go back to it again. If you look at this, you got your bankers, your big bankers, which is your monarchs and your land gentries. You got your clergy, your corporate elite, your royal ministers, your elected officials, your merchants, your bureaucrats, your vassals, your professionals, and everyone else. But nowhere on there, and we're living in a technical age, nowhere on there you might be able to consider the top professionals, but they're not really.
Yeah, because they're beyond that even.
Right, because the tech heads, and so the conclusion that I come to is that the tech heads see this chart and they know what they're looking at, and they're not even a part of this game over here. They understood the assignment. They stepped aside, they sidestepped this chart that governs the majority of our lives every single day. And they're now the ones that are not in the monarchs or the central banker position, but they're literally at the very peak of this chart, and they then are able to manipulate everybody beneath them. They're not even in the game. They're like on the side watching everybody else go crazy while they make the rules.
Well, I think what we will probably see from some of them, like they could maybe go in the corporate elite category. I think maybe because the World Economic Forum has this thing with like Klaus Schwab, and which we will maybe, it's called like the Great Reset. So it's a whole like rabbit hole to go down to. So I would recommend everyone go look it up and check that out.
Repeat it again so they have it.
It's so the World Economic Forum, their 2024 event was called the Great Reset, and so they talk about how they can make a more equitable and sustainable society, which is like code word for, hey, we're gonna like work on climate issues and make things equitable for everyone. To me, that sounds like, I don't want to say communism, but kind of like communism. But I don't want to go there. But anyway, so it sounds a bit like that. They want to make things like sweet and nice and kind for everyone, rebuild capitalism. But a lot of the tech companies... Can you rebuild
capitalism?
I mean, yeah, it always switches up some kind of way.
Coco says, so us unemployed is to everyone else. Yes, Coco, absolutely. You are more
Yes,
like
the workers. We are
the worker
workers.
bees. Exactly. You know, when you go outside your house and you see that anthill out there and you watch that trail of ants that's walking back and forth, that's you.
Yep.
That's you. That's us.
Yep, that's us.
You know what I'm
We're
saying?
just slaving away.
Slaving away, right.
Just, you know.
But can you rebuild capitalism? Can you create something that mimics or is resemblance of capitalism without the fall of the structure that capitalism supports?
I think we're already kind of seeing it. What it's gonna really look like, we can only speculate. You know, we could make it like
this
positive. Or I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. But this is why I encourage people to look into the cryptocurrencies and the NFTs and the other things that are coming down the pipe. Don't get caught
Slipping.
Right? You said it perfect. Don't get caught slipping out here because the game is changing. When you got a company like Zillow that's running around buying up all these properties in order to shift the entire market, in order to try and wrap their tentacles around society in a way that says we're going to make it hard for the average Joe to own a house. So in other words, you're going to pay us every single month for this property. You'll never receive any equity from it. You'll just be straight putting money in our hands while we build equity in property. And land is a critical, land, property, any of it is a critical thing for people to own. You just need to get you some. If it ain't nothing but a vacant lot somewhere in a city. It's Chicago, and I say that specifically because Chicago got all them vacant lots. You can buy them for $1. I don't know if they still do that or not, but my point
Probably.
is, in Detroit, for example, they was selling stuff up there dirt cheap.
Right, they were giving things away. They're giving stuff away in Baltimore right now. Apparently, they did bring the $1 house thing back, and it's like you could, there's nothing stopping any of us from doing this individually. I think it's. Like we talked about last week, is like there's going to be the owner class. Like even if you are still a quote unquote serf, but at least you have more skin in the game. So it's like,
right.
All right, all these houses are $1 on a block in Baltimore. Okay, like you and your family link up and you're like, all right, we're going to buy the block. Like,
and at some point, I don't care. At some point, the values in those areas are going to either go up or down, but they're mostly going to probably, if they're already down. I mean, it's like the stock market. How far can it go? It's real estate. It's there. It's real. It's there. And at the end of the day, as it grows, I mean, I think about places like, for example, where we live now here in Texas. Some of the stuff in this area literally didn't exist when I moved here. And they paying these people a huge amount of money for the little stuff that they buying.
When I left here, which was just in 2019, and I come back and I'm like, what is all this stuff?
Right.
I'm like, where did all this stuff come from?
Yep.
I'm like, what? They've been busy building, like, because I mean, folks, the Southeast is going to be, that's where the future is, like Texas, the Southeast. So it's just a matter of, everybody's got land somewhere in the South near, or houses and stuff. Yeah, well, you want to hold on to it.
It's critically important, at this stage of the game that people understand that you must, you need to, like she said, put some skin in the game. Get something, do something. So of course, I mean, going back to our original situation, I encourage, look into cryptocurrencies, look into NFTs. By the way, we're going to go back over the crypto and NFT stuff because we're picking up more information as we go along and we're learning more.
We're going to do an experiment.
We're gonna do an experiment, see if we can get rich right quick. But right quick, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. My Oh So Smooth family, I have to turn you loose. You all have yourselves a wonderful evening. They have another show coming on here right behind me. So you all enjoy yourselves and you have yourselves a wonderful evening, Oh So Smooth family. And Black Factor family, y'all hang on. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, we're in a time with companies that particular company. It's so amazing what they did. They went literally across the nation buying up properties, bought up all of this stuff, and then turned around and they now are starting to have problems. And I'm glad they're having problems because what they did was that's a whole nother level of social engineering. That's like, we gonna We're gonna buy up all this stuff, and then we're gonna put y'all in a place where you can't own none. That's crazy.
And that's like truly, like that's truly some feudalism. Because like back in the day, like in Europe, Middle Age, you couldn't own any land. Like the lords owned like hundreds of acres, like in miles around the town. Like they owned towns, like the town was theirs, and which we're seeing that. I cannot think of, it was some article recently. Some corporation is talking about like building their own town, and it's gonna have its own health care and transportation, and I feel like maybe Tesla was also talking about this. So and Google as well, somewhere in Texas, they're
all I gotta say is Elon Musk need to go ahead and make that Dogecoin pop up real hard so I can get this money, you dig?
Right. So, we'll have these towns that are owned by corporations, basically, which is like a weird thing to think about, right? I mean, it's happened before, like the mining towns, which, that's why
boom and bust.
Appalachia and like what's happened there has happened because like the mining companies used to own the whole town, or the railroad stations, another good example.
They not only own the town, they own the town's economy.
Yeah, like so when they left,
that was
the end of
that was like it was like sharecropping because you owed. They called it the company store. That's what it was. They if you ever are watching any of the old movies and they talk about these coal mining towns up in Kentucky and them type of places, and they talk about the company store. It was because what would happen is you work for the company, and rather than pay you your wage, a lot of times you go and you would buy. You go to the store and you get everything on credit, and your bill got paid with your paycheck. So you damn near never saw any money, and everything. Of course they marked it up, so they got to keep all the money.
West Pullman area, didn't they do that? They have their own little stores, and you pay
West
rent.
Pullman.
You pay rent. You work.
I
don't know.
The train
was
station.
that was?
The
I don't
train
know.
in Chicago.
I don't know.
Pullman train?
I don't know the history
The
of that
train
area.
stations did it too, and so did the mining companies.
Remember when you were driving trucks over in Louisiana?
They just
it
built
was
a
a company,
big
cane sugar company.
Oh
like
yeah,
early 1900s.
yeah.
And they had all them little homes next to the
Yeah,
railroad.
yeah.
And
Looked like plantation.
Yeah,
with-
the people
well, it
worked
was
for
a
the
plantation.
railroad.
They
They
lived
had a
in
store there, and they lived there, and they paid rent back to the
Yes,
employer.
so they are also bringing that
Hey
back.
Tatum,
That's kind of
next
scary.
next time we do
It
a
is
show,
scary.
we're going to make her. We're gonna get her a microphone and a
Yes,
spot on
'cause-
the show because she does this all the
Everybody
time.
can hear me.
Yeah, well,
Okay, I'm looking up Hershey, the Hershey,
Hershey,
town.
Pennsylvania,
What
Yeah,
yeah,
Hershey, I
Regina
think
Freeman.
they did that same thing too. There's a lot of companies back in the early 1900s who were doing that.
So, yeah, we're-
So it was a slick way of sharecropping, slick way
Yeah,
of
you
slavery.
own the workers; they can't escape. And America we haven't had to deal with this in our lifetime, right? Like not Shell's lifetime.
Guess what?
what?
When you work for a company and you get injured, and they make you go to their company, workman comp doctor, and they always say you're fine. Remember that happened to Connie? She
Yeah.
broke her leg, and they
Yeah.
said her leg was healed, and they sent her back to work. But her leg was never healed. I said, go to your own personal doctor. She goes to the personal doctor. The doctor said, no, ma'am, your leg is still broke. You can't stand on it.
Oh, my
But the
God.
workman comp doctor said she could.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So they buy up these little towns, and you have your own doctor. They're going to always say you're well.
That's called feudalism.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
And it's creepy.
That's
But
feudalism
people so
at its
stupid,
finest.
They're gonna be like, I work for Tesla and I get to live in this house really cheap.
It's-
And then you get sick and go to the doctor, they're gonna say you well, but your ass is sick.
Yeah,
Because they just want you to go produce more cars.
Also, they're building all these
No
places
doubt.
in the right to work states, so this is not going to end well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
not good.
So
Yeah.
go back to the 1900s when your grandpa was missing fingers and you didn't know why because he got injured at work and he
Yeah.
was missing an arm. It's the same thing. And you got to go back to work.
So, I mean, what positives could come from this? Do y'all
The
see any
positives.
positives?
I'm gonna tell you what I think the positives are. My immediate thought about positiveness from this: those who see the writing on the wall and use this as motivation to not only understand what's taking place, but to change how they move within this system. And I'll give you an example. It being in the trucking business, having trucks, one of the most complicated things in the world in the trucking business is keeping good drivers. Boy, let me tell you, that is the major factor outside of repairs. And I don't care how new the truck is, they all break. That is the major factor in the game. And I remember talking to some other drivers one day, some other owners, and they were going on, man, right when Tesla came out with that new truck, they got these autonomous trucks now. They got these trucks. You ain't going to have to even put a driver in there. Man, they going to take over the game. They going to ruin the trucking business. It's going to cost us blah, blah, blah. And I told them, I said, well, you can say that if you want to, but I'll say this. If that's what's coming, I'm trying to have autonomous trucks. Because the last thing I want to do is keep trying to find drivers and cats that ain't on drugs and everything else to move my equipment. And if I could buy a truck that's going to do it for me, please believe I'm rolling with the game.
Well, see, you would be helping the techno feudalism along.
I might
automation be. Is a part of the is a part of, you know.
Yeah, but when this other thing
which
ain't working though. But think about it. Okay, and you're right. But now let's think about it this way. While we try as hard as we can to live up to humanity and be a better part and a bigger part of, not causing more people to be below the poverty line, you have to also ask yourself, do I let my company go because I can't find drivers, or do I replace what would be driver with a truck that doesn't need a driver? I mean, you see what I'm saying? I have to look at it from both sides of the game, as a business owner,
well, of course,
or just a consumer.
And I mean,
do I want to keep making money, or am I willing to go sit down because somebody might not like the way I'm doing things? I don't think so.
Well, and this is what it is. Like, certain jobs just aren't going to exist. So it's like you either move up in class if you can, or get skills that are going to be valued in this new economy after this reset, or you just will keep sliding further down into the
So the positive
poverty.
is when people like myself or others decide to look at the bigger picture and take it on head on, not look at it as a bad thing, because see, the conclusion that I had to come to, and this is my reality daily, is that the world is constantly changing. This life we live is fluid. The bottom line is, are you going to use the fluid to float to the top, or are you going to drown in it? I'm not going to drown in it. I refuse. So what ends up happening is that you get caught up complaining about, well, when are we going to get back to this? When are things going to change back to that? They're not. They're never going back. We're never going backwards. You can't go to yesterday. Yesterday is gone. All you got is right now and a hope for the future. That's it. So what you have to do is take what you see right now and try as hard as you can to manipulate that into your future to benefit you. Now, do we all want to benefit society? Being honest, if I had millions of dollars, I probably wouldn't even have it, because I would probably be more of a philanthropist than anything. Now, if I had the kind of money,
you get nonprofits for that, and they make money.
See,
I'm just letting you.
They're like, no.
See,
allegedly.
Not my inheritance.
Is that right? see what I got to deal with. So, but my point is that, people who I think are deserving of a leg up of help, I would give to. On the other hand, if you don't have anything to give because you haven't worked for that, then what good are you to anybody? But to get something, you got to give something. That's the way life works. It's as simple as that. We're not going backwards. So we have to see what's happening, see the writing on the wall, read it, comprehend it, and apply it, what we learned from what we read. That's it. And then you remove yourself from the "you are here" section of the feudalism chart.
Yes. Yes.
And I know everybody doesn't think the same. I grant you that. Everybody's not on the same level, but water does seek its own level. And sometimes, the cream rises to the top. So you have to decide where you are on that food chart. Are you, on the food chart and the food chain? Are you going to be the big fish, or are you going to be the small fish? If somebody, the next fish comes along and uses as nourishment to go up that, to move up that chain. Where do you choose to be? All right, that's enough. I went there. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, before we cut out of here tonight, I have to do this. it is with incredible sadness that I have to speak about a man whom I had the pleasure of knowing in my life, who in fact is one of the people who helped to mold me into the person that I've become. And I want to say to his family and those who I've known, shit now, hell, 45, almost 50 years. That's my man right there. I call him Big P. That's Mr. Pittman. Now, in this life, if we're fortunate, we get to spend time with incredible people. We get to spend time and learn lessons from individuals who got a lot of game to give and a lot of love to give too. And I was lucky enough to have this man in my life. And every man, well, I don't know about every man. Me, I'm a combination of many men. And this is one of them.
Many men.
You so silly.
I know it's serious.
You just had to throw that in there,
I know.
didn't you?
It was every time
But it's
I
okay.
said.
It's okay. This man, a man among men, a guy who probably one of the coolest individuals, real talk, I ever met in my life.
He really was.
This man was cool, baby. When I tell you nothing would move, when this dude was in the room, nothing could move him. A lot of lessons came from this guy. A lot of understanding, a lot of direction from my childhood all the way up into my adulthood. And I used to tell him all the time, I'd be lucky if I get where you at, brother. And he had a huge family, man. This dude had 8 children that he raised, and every last one of them. We talked about earlier about education and people caring about education. That man put all them kids through Catholic school. You know what that costs in Chicago?
A whole lot of money.
But here's the more important and more incredible part about it. Every last one of them turned out to be good people. Mm-hmm. They all turned out to be productive. They all got it going on. They all living.
That's legacy.
That man, incredible legacy. That's legacy. That's when you got it going on. When you can look at your children and know they got this. Everything is beautiful. And that's just how he was, man. And his wife, Miss Pittman, you know, oftentimes like a mother to me. You know, she was always on deck, always with a kind word and a smile. And Miss Pittman didn't play no games either. But I loved the fact of the way their relationship, the way it was. You know, they were always there together. And a lot of what I saw in him and in their relationship has been applied in my own life. So with all of that said, because I could go on all day, you know, I say all the time, steel sharpens steel and men sharpen men. And I feel like I am worthy of war with my blade because of this guy right here. He give you all the game, from the street to the church. Didn't matter. He had it all for you. So this is my tribute to a great man, Mr. Pittman. He passed away yesterday. He's going to be missed. My condolences to the whole family and all the friends, because there's a whole lot of cats from the neighborhood who he embraced and took under his wing and made sure, you know what I'm saying, that we was on the right path. So we need more of him in the world today. So with that, rest well, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been real. Thank you for hanging out with us. My Facebook people mostly missed out tonight. Oh, well, we're sorry. I want to thank my gracious co-host for assisting me this evening.
No
She's
problem.
always full of information and jokes. I love it.
We'll be back.
We will be back.
Back at it again.
Yeah, we will be back. All right, Arnold.
Yes.
All right, Arnold. Arnold back there. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, share, and keep us going with the feedback. Let us know what you think. I want everybody to have yourselves a wonderful night. Enjoy the upcoming weekend. We will certainly be doing that because we have Ted the Boss coming in doing a workshop on Friday for Step and Set, and we're doing a Steppers Day Party on Saturday. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are local, come hang out with us and kick it and have a good time. And I'm going and eat something for dinner. Have yourselves a wonderful evening. It has been-
Nachos.
Nachos?
Yes,
Nachos for
nachos.
dinner? That's what y'all made for dinner? Okay. I get nachos. Oh, yeah. And my other babies will be here next week. I'm gonna have a house full, y'all. Hey. You know what? That'll be a good show.
Oh,
I
God.
think that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna have all my children on the show.
I can tell you
All my
now that's
children.
going to be like pulling teeth.
You think so?
Yes.
Why? Because they won't cooperate?
Yes. It's too many personalities.
I still got my belt.
Well, I don't know. They pay their own rent now. They're not going to want to hear that.
Yeah, well, Yeah, I guess you got a point. I don't have to pay their rent, so yeah, that might not work. Well, we'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have yourselves a wonderful evening. Thank you very much, and we are gone. Peace.
They'll be like, but I'm going to...